We live in a world that rewards productivity. We're told that if we work harder, we track things more closely and do more on our fertility journeys, we'll get to the result that we want. But what if this journey isn't a problem to be solved with productivity, with adding more to your plate? What if the constant voice in your head doesn't need more things to focus on? And instead, perhaps at this point, your journey is trying to tell you something completely different. Today, we are exploring 3 profound things your body is aiming to tell you as you are trying to conceive. If you feel like you have been running a marathon with no finish line in sight, then this episode is your permission to stop and to listen inwards. Welcome to your journey to fertility. This is the podcast that blends science with spirit to give you all the tools you need as you navigate your fertility journey. I'm your host, Jennifer Edmonds, and for the last 15 years, I've been helping women on their journeys to motherhood and beyond. I believe that combining the latest scientific research along with the best energetic and mindset practices will help you to avoid putting your life on hold and bring you closer to your baby. Each week, you'll learn ways to support your fertility and trust your body so that you can stop stressing that you'll never have your baby and finally walk your path to motherhood. This is the Your Journey to Fertility podcast. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here today, for pressing play and just sharing your time and your energy with me. I always love having you along. I have had a lot of questions lately from listeners and also my students. I always find this comes up a lot at the new year as well, around why is this journey happening to me? What is this whole journey trying to tell me? And I relate to this so much. It is so easy to feel like you are the only person in the world who is going through this. It doesn't help that we don't talk about it, or that when we do, we're met with ridiculous comments about relaxing and adoption and goodness knows what else we have to listen to on a regular basis. And I think that it is really human to look for meaning. I think that's something that our brains do. We always want to look for that conscious reason why something is happening. And we say to ourselves, surely this all has to be for something. This has to be for a reason. But the truth is, I don't know why some of us struggle on this journey so much to building our families, where for others, they look like they just blink and it happens. But what I do know is that everyone goes through something. And it's just that this chapter of your life is so incredibly hard and so heavy. Maybe one day, like me, you'll be able to look back on your journey and say, well, these parts did make sense, or at least some of them did. And you'll be able to see that things worked out the way that they needed to, or maybe even better than you could have hoped for. My life looks completely different to what I thought it would be 10 years ago when I got married. But looking back now in hindsight, it has worked out in such a beautiful way that I wouldn't change for the world. And I don't know if that is always true. I don't know if everything that we go through has to be for something. And I am the very last person who is going to sit here and tell you that everything happens for a reason. And if you are a new listener to the podcast, please know that is not the vibe that you are going to get here at all. So instead today, to help you get your head around this, and it's very easy for someone like me to say, look, this happened to me because of this, and this is how it all worked out. But it is very difficult to unravel some of those things when you are in the thick of it, when you are in that journey of not knowing what is going to come next or how you are ever going to come out of this. So throughout this episode today, I want to offer you 3 ways to reframe what you are going through right now. Because the chances are, if you're listening to this episode, things are feeling really heavy and overwhelming. And if you are in that space, it is likely that this moment in time right now is trying to tell you something. So I want to help you uncover what that might be. Before we get into these things that our journeys and our bodies are trying to show us or tell us at this time, I want to start with this concept of the body being a mirror. And I think this comes up in many different ways. I think that when we look at our menstrual cycles, they are a bit like a report card that we get at the end of each month. Your body will always give you signs and symptoms that something is out of balance. I know now if I've had a period where I'm not sleeping or if I'm unwell, my menstrual cycle is completely out of whack. It goes from being regular and consistent and predictable to being all over the place and getting a lot more PMS than usual. And I think that our bodies are always trying to communicate with us and show us these signs and symptoms of being out of balance. I find if the mind is very frantic, the body creates this armor of physical tension around us. And we see this coming up during times of chronic stress or when your body goes into survival mode. This leads to things like physical tension, and it's something that creeps up on you. We don't realize it happening in the moment, but it's after a period of time, we realize how tense we are and how much tightness we've been holding on to. When we go into survival mode or we go into those moments of fight or flight, our shoulders and our hips automatically tense up to get us ready to run or to flee. And I remember I could never get rid of this constant tension in the left side of my neck and shoulder. It was just always there. I'd go get a massage, it'd be relieved for a brief amount of time, and it would come back. And I know now, because it happens when I am going through something difficult or I'm going through a stressful period in my life, that exact bit of tension comes back up in that exact same place. So our bodies are always holding the emotional impact of what we're going through and trying to communicate with us at all times. So as we get into this episode, I want you to keep that in mind, that your body is always trying to communicate with you and tell you something. So the first thing that this journey could be trying to show you is your addiction to doing and being in this state of go, go, go versus slowing down, resting, and allowing. I think that infertility makes us feel completely out of control. And for so many of us who are very type A, very organized, very much used to working hard to achieve what we want, we find that a really difficult place to be in. So we overfunction in other areas. Like we try to do things perfectly. We read all the books, we take all the supplements, we eat right all the time. And it spills out into other areas of our life too, into work, to cleaning, to exercising, and this constant need to feel productive, which I think is a huge societal pressure that women feel anyway. But it is a way of us trying to regain some of that control that infertility takes from us. The only thing that got me to slow down when I was trying to conceive was a global pandemic. And I don't want that for you. I don't want the entire world to have to shut down over another virus in order for you to have to see that you don't always have to be productive at every moment of the day, that you are allowed to rest, that you don't always have to be doing something. I want you to be able to recognize that this constant state of productivity and doing all of the things is not always helpful. Someone once said to me after I was complaining about, all the appointments I had to go to and all the supplements I was taking and how I had to keep canceling plans at restaurants someone wanted to go to because they didn't have enough fertility friendly options or everything else I'm sure you can relate to. I remember this friend of mine said to me, "Well, how is that working out for you, Jen?" And I was so offended. I was like, well, obviously I'm doing everything right to support my fertility. But actually she was right, because it wasn't getting me anywhere. It was making me miserable. It was making my life unenjoyable, and I wasn't pregnant. So what was the gain here? I feel like your body is going to ask you to slow down, because that is where healing happens. And I find this really fascinating. But do you know that we don't actually know why we sleep? We know that it has something to do with healing and cellular repair and restoration, but scientists have not been able to uncover the depths of what sleep does for us or what is actually happening within our brains and our bodies at this time. We know that it's important, and we know what happens when we don't sleep, which is all bad basically, as I'm sure we well know, but I find it fascinating that it is such an important function, yet we don't understand it completely. It seems so weird from an evolutionary perspective, right? That we would be unconscious for 8 hours of every night. We'd be an easy meal for predators. We'd be open to attacks, if we think about our ancestors when we lived in villages and tribes. And if we could have evolved out of sleep and rest for greater survival, we would have, but we have not, which shows us how unbelievably important rest is on a physical level. But rest is hard. And I know that. And I hear over and over again from my students who say things like, Jen, I can't meditate. I can't sit still with my thoughts. I can't switch off the noise in my head. That silence is so incredibly uncomfortable. And I don't want to be alone with everything that's going on in my mind. And I get that. And I try to meditate every day. And some days it just doesn't work. Some days things are overwhelming and I can't start to switch off that noise. But I find that that is a really big symptom of needing to slow down. And that's why we also need to start small. And I will speak about some ways to do this later on in the episode. The second thing I feel like our fertility journeys are trying to show us is the difference between controlling and allowing. This frantic energy of, I must do all the things, is very much forcing to get where we want and controlling and getting to our baby by controlling absolutely everything around you. This is your body's fight response. So if you think about survival mode and when we go into that stress response, this is your way controlling by fighting and trying to really grasp onto whatever you can do. But there is no actual enemy or predator to fight, obviously. It's not like the tiger is racing towards us. So we end up fighting against the things that we do think we have control over. We overanalyze. We ask AI a million questions. We second guess our doctor, and which is not always a bad thing. It's always good to, get second opinions and expand our horizons and ask the questions. But we go down these rabbit holes of getting stuck through asking ChatGPT exactly what is wrong with us and what is the answer. We go on these strict diets. We read every single book. We take every single supplement, as I mentioned. Whereas allowing is the opposite of control. It is the energy of inviting, of trusting the process and knowing that you are doing more than enough, because we all know someone who doesn't eat well, who doesn't look after their bodies, and they fell pregnant really easily. So yes, we may need a little more help and support than others, but it doesn't mean you have to overhaul your life and be perfect in every single aspect, every single day in order to get pregnant. And that is a really hard thing to get your head around when you think that the more you do, the more you control, the better the outcome is going to be. But this is so important because this energy of allowing is what brings your nervous system into regulation. It brings you out of survival mode. And I'm not saying don't take the supplements that are good for you and don't eat well and look after your body. Don't just drink a bottle of wine every night and start smoking and never exercise and assume you're going to get pregnant. No, we know that taking these really wonderful steps to support our overall health is going to support our fertility. But there is this point of finding the balance of what's helpful and what is overwhelming. So I hope that that is what I'm going to help you with a little bit here today. This idea of releasing control and surrendering is so hard. I did an episode about surrender a couple of months ago. So if you want to go back about learning how to surrender on your fertility journey, go back and listen to that. But it's a practice that I want you to start really small with. So you could say to yourself, what if for 2 minutes today, you said, you know what? I'm going to hand over control right now and say to the universe, I have done enough. I know what I want is on its way. And I trust that I have done more than enough to get there. Even if it is just 2 minutes that you can sit in that energy and just allow that possibility that you have done enough and that what you want is on its way. Maybe you do it for 2 minutes when you wake up. Maybe you do it for 2 minutes before you go to sleep, and see how good it feels just for that very small amount of time to let go. I feel like we come to surrender from some very rock bottom moments when you feel like you can't even go on anymore, when you have already been to that worst case scenario. Literally the worst case scenario has happened. And if you are anything like I was on this journey, I'm sure you've had many of them. So when these moments happen, when you realize you have already done everything, you have done it perfectly, and you're at that place where things are still not working, maybe it's time to release a little bit of that control. The third thing that I feel our fertility journeys are trying to tell us is that we are allowed to give grief a seat at the table. I am sure you have heard the stats around how infertility diagnoses can be shown to be as stressful and difficult as being given a terminal illness diagnosis. This journey is no joke. And we often try to positive vibe our way through failed cycles, and the people around you who don't always get it are trying to minimize our experiences and say, we'll just try again, or you can just do IVF. And like, if I stay positive, I keep my head up, I'm going to get further on my journey. But unprocessed grief stays in your body. As I mentioned before, this idea of when your hips tighten up, when your shoulders tense up, when you go through times of stress and you go into fight or flight, emotions come up when that happens, when we are in that state as well. So this tightness in our body gets tied to so many emotions as well. And incidentally, that is why when we start to unravel a lot of this, it doesn't always feel good, because then we start to release so much of what we've been holding on to and what we've been trying to push away. But here is what we often miss. Emotions need to be heard. They need to be processed and allowed to move through the body rather than being pushed away. When we acknowledge that grief and the physical body is holding so much of this, when we acknowledge it and allow it to be there, that is where our bodies can finally start to soften. I find so much of when I am teaching a class, a lot of these hip opening postures that we do, when they're coupled with simple breath, I find that people get very emotional when we do them, because when we release physical tightness from these areas that have been holding so much of what we've been through, like a pigeon pose, for example, that is where we get to release that physical tension. And usually we're coupling those poses with deep, slow breaths, and our nervous systems are feeling safe to finally release. So much emotion can come up, and that can be really wonderful, really overwhelming, but also really relieving. So I want to give you a few just small actionable things that you can do to help you lean into what your body and your fertility journey might be trying to tell you. So thinking about the three things that we have spoken about today, this moving from the addiction to always being on the go into slowing down, moving into that difference between control and allowing, and then giving grief and other emotions that we may have been pushing away a chance to be heard. So first, take a few moments today, if you can, just find a quiet moment, whether it's after you finish listening to this episode or later on, even before you go to sleep tonight, and really tune into how your body is feeling. Cut out the noise, find a few moments of silence, and really ask yourself what it is you need. Notice those areas within the body that you're holding tension, and allow some moments now to see what comes up. And I'm always amazed when I cut out the noise of my day and my to-do list and everything that's going on, the things that come up are often quite astounding when you really are able to tune into your body. And this takes time and it takes consistency, as I always mention, but you will also be amazed at what starts to come up. Now, if you want to make this a little bit more spiritual, and we know we love a little bit of woo on this podcast, it's a bit of a ritual that I love doing, where you can find these moments of stillness at your own altar that you've created. Now, if altar sounds way too woo for you, don't worry. It can just be something as simple as a desk space or a shelf, or even just a corner of your room, where you're going to set up some items that have meaning for you. So it might be a candle, a crystal, a feather, or maybe a picture of something that helps you connect with your spirit baby, or something that you've collected when you felt like you're in that moment that your baby was speaking to you. And if you don't want these things on display, you can put them in a beautiful box and you can open this when you want to connect with them. But just being around the energy of these things and looking at them before you come into those moments of silence and stillness can be a wonderful way to open up on this journey as well. And the third thing, as I mentioned, these physical poses and movements that we have access to, that I teach, that are all so very, very gentle, if you would like to start finding some of these movement practices for yourself, then don't forget I have a free fertility yoga guide that you can download. The link is in the show notes. So this is a wonderful way for you to get started with your own fertility movement practices and a way for you to work around your menstrual cycle and help get in tune with what your body needs as well. So as we start to finish up this episode today, I want you to remember that this journey is always going to be this constant conversation between you and your body. And it's so easy to forget this connection is a two-way street, right? We tell our bodies constantly what we want from them, but it's so important to stop and listen to what our body is telling us. Because it's all very well for us to say, well, this is the month you're going to get pregnant. This is what we're going to do. We're going to push and we're going to get through to the result that we want. But sometimes your body needs something else or something in addition. So it's so important for us to tune in. If this episode helped you in any way, I would love if you could share it with someone or just share your feedback and your thoughts with me. My DMs are always open. You can email me if you would like. And I also have a voice note service. The link to that is in the show notes too. So if you want to send me a voice note, I love hearing your voices from all around the world. Please don't forget, you can do that as well. Now, on the next episode, I had so much fun putting this one together. I am going through the fertility advice that I don't agree with. And there is so much of it. So I've narrowed it down to 10 things that I think we should all not be listening to. So stay tuned until next week. But until then, I am sending you all my wishes as you continue your own journey to fertility. The most common thing I hear from students who are on their fertility journey is that the stress of trying to conceive has taken over their life. Your days end up being filled with endless appointments, navigating pregnancy announcements. You're trying to eat right, take all your supplements, and it is all you think about from the moment you wake up. I designed the Element Fertility Yoga course to support your body, your mind, and your mental health in 3 important ways: to synchronize your hormones, increase circulation and blood flow, and to help regulate your nervous system. But on top of this, the greatest gift that you can give yourself throughout this journey is a sense of peace, to help you calm your mind and just make this process feel easier. Every single one of my students tell me that this is the first thing they notice after starting a yoga, meditation, and breathwork practice. But on top of this, you have the amazing benefit of actually supporting and increasing your fertility. Studies have shown that those participating in mind-body programs as they're trying to conceive have success rates 3 times greater than those who don't. The course I've designed walks you through natural conception as well as fertility treatments and IVF cycles. And the best part is you can work through it at your own pace in the comfort of your home. The practices start from just 10 minutes per day. To learn more, visit elementpilatesyoga.com or see the link in the show notes.